Thank you so much, Creative Mornings, for having us, and also Art Pace. I was super excited when I got to see the roof for the first time, and this is like a beautiful morning, and I'm so excited to share with you all. So I'm going to be sharing a project that I've been working on for 11 years. So it's entitled Homestead. It's about my family farmhouse in Indiana. But before I get to that, so yes, as Kylie mentioned, I'm a staff photographer at the San Antonio Express-News. Celebrated 6 months last week. So very excited about that. My boss is here, so a little extra pressure. I'm a Michigander. I fell in love with San Antonio when I interned here at the Express-News in 2018, and now I get to call this place home, and just really, really excited to be here. So being from Michigan, the winters there are not quite like this. We would not be able to sit outside in March, so that's pretty exciting. And also, this is the first time that I am publicly sharing this work. My friends and people who have come to my house have seen the prints that I have from this project taped all over a giant wall in my living room. I give a little spiel, but I'm really excited to share this with people who don't know me and also who have never been to Manila, Indiana, where this farmhouse is located. So I'm really excited to share this, and thank you so much for being a willing audience this early in the morning. So this project kind of started when I discovered photography. I started having a camera in my hands when I was 11 and just would take my camera everywhere. And documenting Christmas at the farmhouse was something that I just did. I've never had a Christmas anywhere else besides this one farmhouse in Indiana. And it just was so fun to document my family. Kind of got bored of my immediate family. I do have 5 siblings, so there's lots of photograph at home. But this was always something really special to my family, and it's also the playground from which I started really diving into documentary work, just capturing life around me. So I did a couple Christmases. I would ask people questions. I would ask them what their favorite memory was, how do they describe the farmhouse, and a person in the family that has passed that you wish that you could have met. Mostly because I wanted to know this stuff, and asking questions and asking about stories and the folklore around the farmhouse helped me understand where I'm from and who I am. And I'm also recognizing as I grow older how special and important these photos that I have been making are, and how our family story is unique, but it's also kind of universal, as rural areas in the Midwest and across the country have been disenfranchised and have lost so many resources. So we'll get started. So this is the farmhouse in 1916. Shortly after built, this is my great-great-great-grandfather, Jacob Wissing, and his wife, Dina. And this project also includes excerpts from an essay that my sister wrote about the farmhouse. So it says, "I was a grand house, the first in Rush County to have electricity. Now I'm another dime a dozen, nearly abandoned farmhouses, but not to my family. They have loved me and cared for me throughout the years. Even with every hard time, every low, I'm still the farmhouse, remembered by many, visited by some, and truly valued by a precious few." So this is what the farmhouse looked like in kind of its peak of farm operations, and this photo from 2021 is what it looks like today. It's pretty wild to see these photos next to each other, and kind of, and then this is what it looks like today. So at the farmhouse, I have visited throughout the year, but primarily a lot of this work centers around my time when I've been there at Christmas. So I have photographed a lot of these situations many times. This time. And then there's hundreds more of pictures of the front of the farmhouse, trying to find the right light, the perfect moment, and just trying. And as I photograph every year, I can see the growth and the changes and ways I'm seeing, using different techniques, different looks, experimenting. When I'm there, I'm just playing. I'm getting up very early. I'm wondering what the farmhouse looks like when no one lives there. No one's there the rest of the year. So we my family, the Norris family, descends on it at Christmas, and then it sits empty the rest of the year. So the fact that we have this homestead, this home and sanctuary still in our family is really, really incredible. And it takes a lot of work from a lot of people, which I'll get into later. I'm also fascinated with the roads that like take me to the farmhouse and take me back home to Michigan when I was a kid. I would photograph the roads a lot. I mean, a lot. Looking at the fields and this land that my family made their livelihood from. And I look over the vast expanse of empty farm fields stretching far and wide. These fields used to hold such hope and promise. I remember watching the generations come and go through the fields and ultimately through me. Using drone photography really helped me see the farmland and the farmhouse in new ways. Looking at different patterns and how just documenting this land. And the past year, I have scanned over a couple hundred archival photos from photo albums, photos that I didn't know existed, photos that I've grown up looking at on the walls, and just looking at, and now I'm starting to really examine how these photos from the same spaces have shown up in my work, whether I know it or not. So this is a leatherhead, so it's the Wissing Norris Clearview Farms. So the Wissings are the folks who built the farmhouse and started the farmhouse, and Norris, my great-grandfather, married into the family and became the Wissing Norris Clearview Farms. And it's Clearview because you can have a very clear view of the flat expanse of Indiana farm fields. So it's wild to look back and think about like how this farm used to have such life, like literal so many lives living on it and living off of the land. Like all these animals, and it kind of changes. Cows, I heard lots about the cows growing up, and the pigs. I actually raised 4-H. I did 4-H when I was in high school and raised pigs, and it was such a cool way to be connected to this agricultural heritage. So I heard a lot about the pigs, and the red ones were always kind of wild, according to my dad, who also did 4-H like his dad before him. I'm a sucker. I love pigs. I love raising them, so I love these pig pictures. So these are my great-grandparents, Paul Tillett Norris, I love his middle name, and Alice Wissing. And they married in 1942 on Valentine's Day. And yeah, their story is really beautiful, and like looking at these old photos, like watching them like age together was something that I really enjoyed as I'm like uncovering all these photos. So, 41, I misspoke, 1941. So my grandfather served in the military, and when my grandfather Doug, Grandpa Doug, was born, my great-grandfather actually didn't get to see his son for several months. He actually was still in the state, but because of his training and service, he could not see his bride and new son. So my grandpa Doug grew up without his dad being around, but was surrounded by so many people that loved him and cared for him at the farm. And then they went on to have 3 more kids. So my grandpa Doug is the oldest, and then this is my Aunt Carol, who is now the family matriarch, my Uncle John, and my Aunt Nancy. So Grandpa Doug grew up on the farm doing a lot of agricultural stuff. Like, I can't believe he's like leading this Clydesdale. Elementary school, I'm pretty sure that was high school graduation. So I heard so many stories about him working with the animals and how dedicated he was, and seeing these photos of him actually doing it is really awesome. Felt like I was watching a movie come to life, and like the characters were my family members. So in 1914, this young man is actually the person who was raising the Clydesdale that my grandpa was leading earlier. Uncle John, lots of ways of moving stuff. And watching how farm technology has changed over the years. So this is my Uncle John, and my Aunt Carol here on the, I guess, looking at it's the left. And my great-grandparents again, they just aged so beautifully. So unfortunately, my great-grandfather Paul ended his life in 1988 after many decades of struggling with bipolar disorder from his time in the military. And thinking about this and my family's own history of mental health, my dad actually also has bipolar disorder, and like watching this, the familial trauma and how like the stories that used to be just stories like kind of come up in like my own current story of how mental health has impacted my family as really wild to think about, and thinking about how to document that trauma in the photos that I take today has been kind of the recent challenges that I'm thinking about. And when I uncovered this photo, I just was blown away. Like this smoke around his head, like there was so much that he was struggling with that no one got to see, and this photo just like kind of encapsulated that for me. So I didn't make this. I think this was my great aunt Annetta who documented this, but treasures like that is some of really the exciting parts of looking at these old photos as I'm making new ones. So also, sorry, trigger warning. There was a fire in 1995 that shut down that really impacted the farm. There was an electrical fire in one of the pig barns and kind of destroyed the hopes that my family had of continuing farming the land. And also, given that and changing economic things, there's a whole lots of big factors in why we don't have the farm anymore. And so little by little, the farm has shrunk. My Uncle John and my Aunt Carol are still active members, as well as some aunts and uncles, and actually another Norris rents the land and farms it. So it's really cool that we aren't renting to a mega farm, but it takes a lot of work to keep what we do have. My grandpa Doug, again, he ended up passing really suddenly when I was 6. But he lived at the farm until he died. Always doing lots of service work. He never stopped being useful. Lots of work to keep the farm going. The fence came down in 2011, the white picket fence, and became a headboard, actually. Pictures of that later. My great-grandmother Alice went on to live many decades after her husband died, and I don't really remember her much, but these photos show that I did have some kind of a relationship with her, which is really beautiful to know. She ended up dying in 2003, and she was the last person to be born and die in the farmhouse, and still can feel her presence and many other people's presence when I am there alone. So we have a family plot, and that's just still a wild concept for me as someone who's lived 14 addresses in 5 years, that you can still stay in like the same place. And visiting and taking care of these grave sites are really important to my family. We always do a visit whenever we are near the farmhouse. So we continue to still gather and coming together, and Christmas is kind of like the main time that we do that. And looking at these photos, like there's different, like the same space that I've been documenting over the course of 11 years. So you see repetition. Here I am in the braids, and then 2019, we're still hanging out on the at the water trough. We're Grandpa Doug again. And these are photos that I didn't even know were similar. Like I took this picture of my sister Tabitha, and then was doing self-portraits at the farm this past year, and did that, and I was like, wait, these photos are very similar. I'm not going to read all this just for the sake of time, but my sister did a really beautiful essay for college about her experiences with the farmhouse and the ways that we using the farmhouse as a character, and just really related to that. So Christmas, main time that we get together. And I was born in 96, and here I am with my Grandpa Doug and my grandmother Norris, great-grandmother Norris. He's a really cute kid. Really love that outfit on the right. And yeah, like, I don't know, I found this picture of me, and I haven't liked a picture of my younger self this much. I loved being around people who wanted to listen to me and were interested in me and cared about me. And that's really the magic part of Christmas. And then I had some more siblings. And so the meals are a huge gathering part of our time at Christmas. So my great grandmother Norris would make a feast. My Aunt Carol makes a feast. And this past year, this was our Christmas Eve dinner. The last 2 years at the farmhouse, we have not had a big Christmas because of COVID and sisters, and we had frozen pizza. But we were still together, and we were still in this special space. And we get together and we sing the Johnny Appleseed. That's the only prayer that we do. And holding everybody's hands and giving a squeeze to your neighbors, always a special moment. So this is the last years that I've spent there with my three of my sisters, and I'm really grateful that we still got to make that happen. Oh gosh, this is making me hungry. I'm very excited for this. The breakfast talk I want to have after this. Yeah, it's just a gathering around the table has been such an integral part of my family's life. And so watching similar situations happen and like seeing how I like look at the more that I immerse myself in this imagery, the more that I'm seeing repetition and finding unique moments too. The TV used to work. It does not anymore. I think that was the last year of the TV working. We watched the Three Stooges. And Christmas tree is always a big central part of Christmas, right? Especially for my family. And watching how the trees get decorated every year is really cool. My Uncle John actually lives across the street from the farmhouse still, and he owns a Christmas tree farm, and he supplies our Christmas tree most years. Well, every year. And so 2018 and 2021. So when it's just my three sisters, we had this little tree, but my sister Natalie made sure to decorate it just right, so it was special. It's cold at the farmhouse, as any cold, drafty house is, so lots of slippers, lots of socks needed. And my Aunt Carol, oh gosh. So she's the youngest daughter of Paul and Alice Norris, matriarch. She works tirelessly to make sure that Christmas happens, to make sure that the farmhouse stays in the family, and I want to be here when I grow up. Incredibly kind and caring person that makes you feel seen. Always a listening ear. And she's been the main documentarian of the family in my age, so now it's interesting to watch the roles reverse and like be able to document her in all these situations. Also, another main character in this body of work is my youngest sister, Tabitha. So, yeah, so looking at the farmhouse through the eyes of my Aunt Carol and what she does, and then also this new generation of Tabitha. So, like, Tabitha has not experienced the richness of the farmhouse that I experienced when I was young. And so, like, watching her experience it today has been super fascinating, and seeing how many different situations that repeat over and over again across the years. And also watching her grow up, oh my gosh, putting this together made me realize how fast she's grown. And so today she's 15, she'll be 16 in July, and I'm freaking out about that. But then also in our portraiture, looking at how, like, mirroring them, like a lot of these I didn't tend to like copy, but then once I got them on my hard drive, cool. It was very similar. All right, I want to skip ahead a little bit because we're almost out of time. But like just seeing the same space, different ways, thinking about the people and the heaviness of the history of my family, and watching similar body language come up over and over again has been fascinating. And also documenting the farmhouse when no one's there and what it looks like when it's just the ghosts and the spirits of my ancestors hanging out there. Also, let me know if I'm going too fast. I just like, I chose a lot. There's a lot of photos here. 11 years is a lot of work. And just trying to get interpretive with documenting that weight, and like, there's a lot of happiness and joy, obviously, but also a lot of heaviness, as with any story. So that was the fence that used to be out front. It's now a headboard. Getting up very early. I get up at sunrise and then I go back to sleep. I'm not gonna lie. But like looking for like when the light's interesting and looks good. So many pictures out front. And walks is a big staple at our time at the farmhouse. And also naps, very important. Rest, very, very important. My Uncle John works so hard, and seeing how he has these moments of rest is really beautiful, and documenting that. I'm sure he is not happy that these photos like of him sleeping are out there, but it's beautiful that he feels safe enough to have this moment of rest. And watching like my siblings grow up and play on the phones. And this is reading, so Aunt Carol is looking right at the camera here, and now she's the one reading the bedtime stories. She often stays up very late doing last minute things. Gosh, her days at the farmhouse are so long, and she does so much, and I'm so, so grateful for her. And this is her. She sends everybody off when people leave the farmhouse. She waves them off, and I don't know if she's praying or waving goodbye. But this was one of those moments that I captured, and it was me realize like this body of work is really, really important to me and my family, and made me realize like this was the year that I was like, I have so many photos, and like they're really special, and like I'm doing something really cool here. I think that was the year that happened. And I'm going to close with this quote from my sister Natalie's essay. I'm content in my past, thankful for my present, and I have learned to accept the future. And yeah, sweet.